Chapter 681. The paratroopers have landed. Everyone was stunned by the sight of countless paratroopers landing. Aren't these fighter jets supposed to land temporarily in Churron? Why are people jumping out of them? Exactly. The fighter jets haven't arrived at the airport yet, so what are these paratroopers going to do after jumping out? It seems that they're planning to land here. What on earth is going on? Everyone outside the factory started to discuss among themselves as they did not know what was going on. The Jessup family members inside the factory were also feeling afraid upon seeing this. Mom, look, paratroopers are suddenly leaping out of the fighter jets. You called Grandpa just now, didn't you? Aren't those jets supposed to land temporarily in Churron? Blake asked in confusion. I don't know what's going on either. Maybe they're in the middle of a military drill, Lacey answered. She was unsure about that too. I think something's not right, darling. Why did the fighter jets just happen to pass by where we are? Why did paratroopers jump out of the jets? Did you not ask the right questions? Fergus asked. Dad's right. If the soldiers come here and see what's going on here, they surely won't just stand there and watch, Blake said, worried. Lacey nodded. She found that to be true, and that made her feel anxious at that moment. That was why she planned to call her father again, so that she could get some clear answers. Sherry, Cecilia, and Miranda were extremely surprised to see the paratroopers who appeared all of a sudden. If they could land safely, they would surely put a stop to this. On a memorial hill in South Lake City, Jerry pocketed his phone as he stood beside the king. At this moment, his phone rang again. When he saw that it was his daughter who was calling again, he somewhat resignedly went away and took the call. What now, Lacey? Dad, some paratroopers are leaping out of the fighter jets and landing in Churron. Why is this happening? Lacey went straight to the point. What? Paratroopers? Jerry asked, somewhat confused. Yeah. Didn't you tell me that these jets would land temporarily in Churron? Why would these paratroopers go the extra mile and jump out of their aircraft then? Who knows? Maybe they're in the middle of a military drill, Jerry said calmly. It's too sudden for it to be part of a military drill. Is there another secret mission or something that you don't know about? Lacey asked. I'm not the commander, so I don't know much either. These paratroopers are none of your business anyway, so why are you so panicked? Jerry suddenly realized that something was not right. He then asked the question, what should I do if they want to do something to me? Lacey asked nervously. How's this related to you? Jerry asked, bemused. The soldiers are landing near where I am. I'm at the abandoned factory on the northern side of the city, Lacey explained. Why did you go there? Tell me. Are you keeping something from me? Jerry said sternly. He knew his daughter well, and there was something off with her tone. She must have stirred up some trouble. No, I'm not. Lacey denied her father's accusation immediately. Why are you asking me again and again about the fighter jets then? Don't you worry. Caspian's the Diatoranian God of War, and he won't send so many jets after you, Jerry said. He could guess that Lacey was worried, so he explained further. However, his words only served to give Lacey a shock. She asked fearfully, Dad, did you just say that Caspian Lynch is the one who deployed those jets? Yes, Caspian has left the memorial hill. He led a fleet of 5 fighter jets to Tigra, but then the country surrendered directly, Jerry said. Hearing her father tell her that Caspian was on one of those jets, Lacey was even more scared. Was all of this really a coincidence, or was Caspian here to rescue Sherry and the others? Dad, tell me the truth. Were those jets really headed toward Tigra? Do the soldiers have to complete some other mission? Lacey asked worriedly. Yes. I heard His Majesty himself say that. The jets were headed toward Tigra, but they're landing temporarily in Churron now, Jerry said helplessly. He was confused. Why would Lacey be so worried? Even if those paratroopers were Caspian's men, it was not any of her business. That's great. That's great. As long as their appearance isn't related to me. It seems that this is just a coincidence. Lacey heaved a long sigh in relief. As long as those fighter jets were here for a mission. What? What the hell are you keeping from me? Jerry asked sternly. He had this constant feeling that something was not right. Helpless, Lacey could only tell him about what she had done. I kidnapped a few people, and they're in the abandoned factory now. Why did you do that? I knew that I was going to hear bad news from you, Jerry asked, annoyed. He found Lacey to be strange today as she kept on asking questions. Let me tell you something. Caspian is going to Churron today. You'd best not cause any trouble. Even I won't be able to help you if anything happens to you, Jerry said. Lacey was shocked upon hearing his words. She said in a shaking voice, It's too late. I've already done what I've done. What should I do? Didn't you say that nothing happened? Tell me, who did you kidnap? Jerry asked. Blake was heavily injured, And he's now blind in his right eye. He must undergo surgery to replace his eye. I spent more than $1 million to hire a private doctor. Then I kidnapped all the people who injured Blake and tied them up in the factory because I wanted to use their eyes for the surgery. Helpless, Lacey had no choice but to tell Jerry everything. What on earth happened? Jerry was befuddled and completely lost, so Lacey could only tell Jerry everything that had happened the night before. You acted dumbly. Who are the people you kidnapped? Jerry asked quickly. He had sensed that this was bad. They aren't anyone important in particular. The old lady is just a farmer named Sherry Lynch. She's with her daughter. The other two are siblings who fled here from South Lake City, Lacey said. Sherry Lynch? Sounds familiar, Jerry said, confused. Sherry Lynch has the same surname as Caspian Lynch, the God of War, and she claims to be his mother, Lacey said calmly. Her words gave Jerry a shock. What? She said that she's Caspian's mother? Jerry asked, completely stunned. He suddenly recalled something. Logan Massey's wife had the name Sherry Lynch. That was why he felt like he had heard that name before. He had also heard about how Sherry had left the Massey residence in a fit. Logan also lost his son after that incident. Chapter 682, Caspian is here. Dad, how can Sherry be Caspian's mother? I've run an investigation on her before. To make a living, she sells vegetables she plants herself in the countryside areas of Churron. With how poor and undignified she is, how can she be the God of War's mother? Lacey appeared to be nonchalant even now. Tell me what happened again, and don't miss a single detail, Jerry said hurriedly. He had heard about Caspian's background, but he only knew a little about it. What if Sherry was really Caspian's mother? Jerry could not bring himself to think about it. His daughters seemed to have caused big trouble. Who in Diatoranian dared to ruffle Caspian's feathers? Caspian's reputation intimidated everyone in the world, and even the king had to take a step back when it came to him. Lacey noticed that something was not right with her father's tone, which made her nervous as well. She told Jerry everything once more. At this moment, the paratroopers were already halfway to the ground and had opened their parachutes. Even Sylvia had leaped out of a fighter jet. Caspian and Willow prepared to jump out as well. When they were close to Churron, Caspian taught Willow how to parachute from a jet. Willow appeared to be brave at first, but she was extremely afraid when it was about time to jump. Caspian, I'm still scared. What if an accident happens? Willow said fearfully. Stay on the jet then. It'll land in Churron Airport later, Caspian said. He was worried as well as Willow had had no parachuting experience. If an accident did happen, it would bring about irreversible consequences. He had not wanted Willow to parachute from the jet, but she wanted to give it a try. Who knew that she would be scared at this moment? I want to see Miranda and the others sooner, Willow said. I know you feel anxious, but parachuting brings about high risk, Caspian said. Or you can leap from the jet with me in your arms. I'll feel more at ease, Willow told him her idea. No. These parachutes are specially made and their weight capacity is limited, Caspian said no immediately. He was the Diatoranian God of War. Of course he would not take this risk. Although parachuting from a jet with his wife in his arms was very romantic, he would not take his life so lightly. Fine then. I'll go to you after the fighter jet has landed. Willow nodded. She dared not force listen to me, Caspian said, pinching Willow's cheek. Sure, take care and be safe. Willow looked at Caspian lovingly. Macy, who was about to jump out, was witness to Caspian and Willow's sappy exchange. She said impatiently, Are the two of you going to jump or not, Lord Caspian? I'm not going to wait for you. I'll jump first. If you can't wait, then jump, Caspian snapped exasperatedly. Macy had gotten impatient long ago after all that waiting. She got ready and leaped. Upon seeing how Macy had jumped out without any hesitation, Willow suddenly felt great admiration for her. Both of them were women, were they not? Why was she so different from the others? The moment Macy leaped out of the jet, she exclaimed internally, Both of us are women, but why can Willow marry Lord Caspian while I'm still single? Willow, I won't say more. I have to jump now, Caspian said. With that, he jumped out of the jet. After Lacey told Jerry the gist of what had happened, the first squad of paratroopers landed. Upon seeing the trained soldiers, the fighters outside the factory felt afraid. Blake and the others were shaking from fear as well. As for Sherry, Cecilia, and Miranda, hope was lit up in their hearts again. It seemed that they would surely be rescued. Jerry froze after listening to Lacey's words. It was very likely that Sherry was really Caspian's mother. Why else would Task Force Rose head over there if that was not the case? Dad! Oh no! The paratroopers are about to land. Help me think of a solution. If they discover what's going on here, I'll be done for. Lacey said fearfully. These paratroopers are all Caspian's men. They're surely landing near the factory on his orders. The people you kidnapped must be acquainted with him in some way, and Sherry might really be Caspian's mother. When it comes to something like this, even I have no right to meddle. Jerry was exasperated and furious. Hearing Jerry's words, Lacey shook with fear. She was totally stunned. Dad, you must save me! She was so shocked she had no idea what to do at this moment. How can I possibly do that? I don't have the right to stick my nose in the Diatoranian God of War's business. If you really did kidnap his mother, you'll definitely be in danger, Jerry said. Lacey understood how serious this was as well. She was really afraid now. You're a higher, up in Diatoran, Dad. You surely have a way to save me. I'm your only daughter. You can't just watch as I'm arrested by Caspian's men, can you? Lacey begged hurriedly. She knew that she had done something very wrong as well. Fergus and Blake noticed how Lacey's face darkened, and that scared them. It seemed this was truly a serious matter. There are many corpses near the factory, and the paratroopers will surely notice that something's wrong. Even if they weren't sent there by Caspian, they wouldn't just ignore that. I'm out of ideas now too, Jerry said helplessly. He was even worried that he would be affected by what his daughter had done. I have no choice but to rely on you, Dad. No matter what, you have to think of a way to save me, Lacey begged. I'm helpless as well. The God of War's power knows no bounds, and the only person who can command him is the king. What can I do? Jerry replied helplessly. It was not that he did not want to rescue his daughter. It was that he could not. Caspian was the second most powerful person in the country after the king. Jerry had a high position in the royal court too, but he could not hold a candle to Caspian in terms of status. Oh right, aren't you with the king right now? You can plead to the king. It should be fine if the king orders Caspian to stop, shouldn't it? Lacey suddenly had an idea. If the king was the only person who could give Caspian an order, then the situation would be resolved if the king did just that. Her father was favored by the king anyway. Maybe the king would listen to him? Chapter 683, Bracing himself. You want me to plead to the king? How am I supposed to tell his majesty that you've done something so despicable? What if I lose my position because of what you've done? Jerry snapped. I know that I've done something wrong, Dad. If you can save me from getting in danger, I'll listen to everything you say and never cause you trouble in the future, Lacey begged. Fine. I'll try my best. Jerry sighed. He had no choice but to give it a try. Okay, but you must be fast or we'll be done for, Lacey said worriedly. Got it. You can try to buy yourselves some time while I plead with the king, Jerry said. Great. I'll wait for good news from your side, Dad. Lacey ended the call. Jerry knew that this was a very urgent matter, and he had no choice but to shamelessly go to the king. When Fergus saw that Lacey had ended the call, he asked anxiously, What's happening, darling? What are these paratroopers here for? There's a high possibility they're Caspian's subordinates, Lacey said fearfully. There was no need to hide that from everyone else when they were already in this situation. The Jessups were all shocked. Fergus and Blake were especially spooked. Both of them were shaking with fear. If the paratroopers were indeed Caspian's men, they would surely die today as they had kidnapped Caspian's mother. Kent and his assistant were afraid too. They were only accomplices, but Caspian would surely not let them off. Not when this was such a malicious act. Sherry and Miranda were surprised and elated at the same time as they had thought that Caspian would not send any soldiers over. Looking at the Jessups, who looked resigned and defeated, Sherry believed that the paratroopers were Caspian's men. If Caspian had already sent his army out, they would surely be rescued. Sherry was definitely the most emotional at the notion of being saved. She wanted to see what her son looked like after he was all grown up. Mom, the Diatoranian God of War has really sent his troops to save us. Is he really my brother? Cecilia said excitedly. She was still in disbelief that she had such a powerful brother. It's true, Sherry said with conviction. She kept on looking at those paratroopers, trying to look for Caspian among the throng. That's amazing! I didn't expect to have such a powerful brother. No one will dare bully me in the future, Cecilia said proudly. I'm not sure if he's willing to recognize me as his mother though, Sherry said. Miranda said, He'll surely do that, Sherry. Why would he command such a massive operation just to rescue you if he didn't want to? Now, it was the Jessups' turn to panic. They could only hope that Lacey's father would save them. Mom, the paratroopers are going to land soon. Think of a solution, quick, Blake said in alarm. Don't get yourself in a panic. Your grandpa's pleading with the king. We just need to buy some time while we wait for him to get back to us, Lacey said. All these paratroopers look so fierce, darling. I think we won't be able to drag it out. Fergus was at a loss for what to do. After they land, we'll strike up a conversation to buy some time. It'll be fine as long as they don't attack immediately, Lacey said after giving it some thought. She did not have any good ideas in mind either. We've pissed off the Diatoranian God of War. We should pack up our things and leave now. It's not too late yet, Fergus said. Yeah. I'd rather leave this place than wait here for our demise. Blake nodded in agreement with his father's suggestion. Where can we run away to? Look at those paratroopers. They're about to surround the whole factory. There's nowhere we can escape to, Lacey said. Right after she said that, the paratroopers landed. They folded up their parachutes immediately and got ready to strike. Sylvia, Lena and Avon had also landed. Caspian was the last one to jump. He had just pulled the ripcord and was still in mid-air. Those fighters had also frozen in shock upon seeing the paratroopers land. They were at a loss for what to do as it was too late for them to run away at this point. If they fired at the soldiers, they would be met with an even more horrible death. This was why all of them stood rooted on the spot. They dared not do anything. Arya and the others were still standing only thanks to their strong willpower. Upon seeing the paratroopers who had landed, they breathed out in relief and collapsed to the ground. Arya! Lena's heart hurt when she took in the injuries on their bodies. Lacey noticed that there were some general officers among the paratroopers. She shouted at them, "Soldiers, my father is Jerry Andrews. Why did you surround this place? Are you on a mission?" Sylvia expressed her disdain at Lacey's words. "Lord Caspian has given us a command. We've been ordered to kill everyone in the Jessup family, as well as their accomplices." Caspian had already given this firm order when on board the fighter jet. If the Jessups dared object, the soldiers were to kill them all. How dare they do this to his biological mother? They deserve death and more than that. Upon hearing Sylvia's command, the armored soldiers raised their guns and fired. Under heavy fire, the fighters died before they could even realize it. No one expected those paratroopers to open fire right after landing. The armored battalion was furious after seeing the heavily injured Arya collapse to the ground, and they wanted to avenge her. The Jessups were terrified by this scene and were completely lost. Even Sherry, Cecilia and Miranda were surprised that the soldiers had opened fire immediately after folding their parachutes. They had expected the soldiers to arrest the people outside the factory and hold an interrogation. However, they felt nothing upon witnessing the deaths of those people who had done inexplicably evil deeds. As the Diatoranian God of War, Caspian never did things halfway. He had already issued an order, telling the soldiers that they did not need to be forgiving to these people. More and more paratroopers landed, and more bullets were fired. It formed a web of gunfire. Celian was totally stunned upon seeing the armored battalion and Task Force Rose's fierce attacks. He shouted to his subordinates, "Don't just stand there, fight back!" However, his subordinates were so shocked they fled in all directions. Even if they were to fight back, they could not hold a candle against those paratroopers. Less than 2 minutes was all it took for most of Celian's subordinates to be killed. Only less than 100 people remained, which gave the Jessups a bigger shock. It caused them to tremble in fear. Chapter 684 Absolutely Shameless. "Mom! Almost all of our men are going to be killed. What should we do?" Blake was pacing around in a panic. "I don't have any good solutions either. We have no choice but to wait for your grandpa to get back to us," Lacey said helplessly. "If this goes on, we'll probably be long dead before your father replies to us," Fergus said hurriedly. "I can't do anything about this either. Now it seems that the paratroopers are unstoppable. We don't have much time left." Lacey was absolutely terrified. She had thought that this operation would be infallible, but they had ended up stuck in such a horrible situation instead. On the Memorial Hill in South Lake City, Jerry approached the king and ventured cautiously, "Your Majesty, did Caspian lead his troops toward Churron for an operation? He's not going to Churron but to attack Tigra." "What are you asking this for?" Balthazar said. The higher Upsis had assumed that Caspian was leading his troops to Tigra under Balthazar's command, which ended up scaring the other country witless. Balthazar went with it and said that Caspian was heading toward Tigra. However, he knew very well that Caspian's true objective was to rescue his mother. "I got word that Caspian's troops have landed near an abandoned factory in Churron though, Your Majesty," Jerry said. Balthazar's face darkened. He asked, displeased, "From where did you obtain this information, Jerry?" Balthazar knew that Caspian was heading toward an abandoned factory on the northern side of Churron to rescue his mother. But he had not told anyone else about this, so where did Jerry hear this from? Noticing Balthazar's expression, Jerry said nervously, I heard this from my daughter, Your Majesty. Caspian's operations are confidential. How would your daughter learn about them? Balthazar asked. She's near the factory, and she happened to witness this, so she told me about it, Jerry said cautiously. This is none of your business, so don't stick your nose into it, Balthazar said nonchalantly. Yes, Your Majesty. I was worried that Lord Caspian was keeping something from you, so I wanted to inform you about it, Jerry said. It would be great if he could manage to smear Caspian's reputation somewhat. Caspian has fought in countless battles, and he's very dependable. Your concern about this matter is not needed. Balthazar did not tell Jerry about the objective of Caspian's expedition. What if Lord Caspian is abusing his power and massacring people here and there, Your Majesty? Jerry asked. Hearing Jerry's words, Balthazar finally realized that something was not right. He asked, Are you implying something, Jerry? Tell me the truth. What do you mean by asking that? Also, why would your daughter just happen to be there when the paratroopers landed? My daughter married Fergus Jessup from Churron. The Jessups are preparing to construct new buildings, so they went to the countryside for an observation. They happened across those soldiers and were shocked, so my daughter gave me a call. Jerry fabricated a lie. Of course, he would not tell Balthazar about Lacey's wrongdoings. I know you have reservations toward Caspian, Jerry, but you don't need to try and cause him trouble all the time. As long as your daughter does her own thing, he won't give her any trouble, Balthazar said nonchalantly. Jerry knew that the situation called for immediate action. If he was to waste more time here, Caspian would probably attack his daughter soon. Helpless, he could only tell the truth in its entirety. I'll be honest here, Your Majesty. My daughter was muddle-headed and did something she shouldn't have done. Lord Caspian's troops have already surrounded her, Jerry said anxiously. Balthazar frowned. He asked, What on earth is going on? Lord Caspian's mother, a woman named Caspian Lynch, is still alive, isn't she, Your Majesty? Lord Caspian went on this expedition to save her. Is that right? Jerry did not reply to Balthazar but instead asked him a few questions. Balthazar was surprised as he did not expect Jerry to ask those questions. He had only learned of the identity of Caspian's biological mother just now. Even Caspian himself had just known about that for 2 days. Why would Jerry know about it then? Upon having that thought, Balthazar found things strange. Was Jerry's daughter the person who kidnapped Caspian's mother? You haven't answered my question yet, Balthazar said sternly. How dare Jerry not give an answer to his question? Balthazar was naturally angry at that. His voice was so loud that it attracted everyone else's attention immediately. Jerry was red in the face. He knew that he could no longer keep this from Balthazar, and he had figured out that Caspian had gone on the expedition to save his mother. Things were clear now. The person his daughter had kidnapped was indeed Caspian's mother. Caspian would not have deployed his troops otherwise. Jerry was starting to get worried now too, as his daughter had indeed done something incredibly wrong. He did not know how he should resolve this matter. The only solution was to tell the king everything. Maybe he could obtain His Majesty's forgiveness. Upon having that thought, he knelt in front of Balthazar and said fearfully, Your Majesty, my daughter kidnapped a farmer who's very likely to be Caspian's mother. Caspian Lynch! Balthazar and everyone else present were shocked to hear Jerry's words. Why would your daughter kidnap Caspian's mother? Balthazar asked bemusedly. These two people should not have known each other at all. Jerry had no choice but to tell Balthazar everything from the beginning. Lord Caspian's troops have already surrounded my daughter and they might kill her. Please, Your Majesty, I beg of you. Please order Lord Caspian to be lenient and not kill her, Jerry said. After that, the higher-ups present finally understood what had happened. Lacey Andrews was a cruel woman who treated the lives of others like dirt just for the sake of her son, and she had committed heinous crimes. Jerry was a bastard too, for he had the nerve to beg the king for leniency despite knowing the magnitude of what his daughter had done. Lacey was so brave as to kidnap Lord Caspian's mother. No one could save her. You dare ask me to stop Lord Caspian in spite of the nefarious crimes your daughter has committed, Balthazar said coldly. It's just a misunderstanding, Your Majesty. My daughter didn't know that Ms. Lynch was Caspian's mother. If she had known about Ms. Lynch's identity, she wouldn't have done that. She would never have, Jerry said. Bastard! Balthazar was furious. He roared, even if Sherry were an ordinary civilian, that still wouldn't make your daughter's behavior less shameful. Jerry had nothing to say in response to Balthazar's angry words. His back was already drenched in cold sweat. Chapter 685 Her Mighty Brother. In an abandoned factory on the northern side of Churron, Caspian landed safely as well. He folded up his parachute before walking to the factory. Everyone else followed behind him. Most of the fighters had been killed, and only a couple dozen people were left. Avon and several medics quickly went over to Arya and the others to give them emergency treatment. Lena was extremely saddened by the sight of the severe injuries suffered by Arya and the others. However, there was nowhere they could run away to, as there were paratroopers everywhere. How were they supposed to escape this place? If they attempted it, they would surely be killed by Caspian's men. Caspian headed directly toward the factory. Sherry saw him. He was surrounded by his men and appeared to be mighty and powerful. Although it had been more than 20 years since Sherry had last seen him, she recognized him at first glance. Perhaps this was because of the connection between mother and son related to each other by blood. Caspian was no longer a baby in her arms, but instead had become the Diatoranian God of War whose reputation traveled the seas. Also, he came with his troops to rescue her when she was in grave danger. Upon seeing this, Sherry felt like she was in a dream. Caspian also felt emotional upon seeing everyone in the factory. He noticed Sherry too. Although this was the first time they had met, he could sense that Sherry was his biological mother. Caspian's thoughts had always been preoccupied with the identity of his parents. He had succeeded in finding his biological father and could be reunited with his mother now. This made him feel unspeakable emotions. Looking at the wrinkles on Sherry's face, it was obvious that she had suffered after leaving the Massey family. Miranda was emotional upon seeing Caspian. The moment she saw him, she finally felt relieved as she knew that he could resolve everything. Cecilia, on the other hand, had only heard of Caspian's name and had never met him before. When she saw him come over surrounded by a group of people, she could be certain that this was the famous Diatoranian God of War. He was Caspian Lynch, who was also her brother. "Mom, is that mighty-looking man Caspian, my brother?" Cecilia said excitedly. "Yes, he is." Sherry nodded, her eyes rimmed with moisture. She noticed his resemblance with a younger Logan. "He's so cool," Cecilia said, delighted. The Jessups were surprised to see Caspian come over. At this moment, they finally believed that Sherry was Caspian's mother. "Mom, Caspian's here? We're done for," Blake wailed. "Don't panic, we still have a chance. Your grandpa has his ways, and he can surely save us. Perhaps he's already convinced the king." Lacey was so nervous that she struggled with saying a coherent sentence. At this moment, she was more terrified than everyone else. "When will Jerry get back to us, darling? If we wait for a second longer, we'll die." Fergus was panicked as well. "When His Majesty learns about this, he'll let us go thanks to our relationship with my father, so don't worry," Lacey said, putting up a pretense of calmness. "When a general is on an expedition, he has the right to not listen to an order issued to him. What if Caspian doesn't listen to Majesty's orders? We aren't backed by any powerful or infamous figures either. What if Caspian lays his hands on us?" Fergus asked, terrified. "We were also about to do that to Lord Caspian's mother. We wanted to gouge her eyeballs out too. We're definitely done for," Blake said resignedly. "We didn't know she was Caspian's mother." "His Majesty won't put any blame on us, I think," Lacey said. One could hear the constant sounds of guns being fired. Caspian's troops were already carrying out the last stages of the operation. Sylvia and her team killed everyone outside the factory, before preparing to enter it. At this moment, Celian quickly raised his hands in surrender. "I give up. Please, don't kill me." "You bastard! You injured the members of our task force, Rose. Like hell I'll let you live," Sylvia said viciously. Right after saying that, she aimed her gun at Celian and fired. The bullet was fired at his heart, and he died instantly. Every one of Celian's men was killed as well, and their corpses lay outside the factory. Sylvia ran into the factory with a massive squad of soldiers in tow. They got rid of all the obstacles for Caspian. Meanwhile, the armored battalion followed Caspian into the factory too. The Jessups fell to the ground upon Caspian's entrance. "I'm the daughter of Jerry Andrews, a higher-up in Diatoran. You'd better not act rashly," Lacey said panikedly, fearing that Caspian's men would fire at her. "Restrain them so that Lord Caspian can deal with them," Sylvia ordered. She did not want Caspian's mother to bear witness to such a bloody scene either. This was why it was best to let Caspian deal with these people himself. "Got it." The soldiers charged forward and tied up the Jessups and Kent. "Are you bastards blind? I'm Mr. Jerry Andrews' daughter. How dare you lay your hands on me? Do you want your life to be cut short?" Lacey shrieked angrily as she tried her utmost to break free. "Jerry Andrews is nothing. Does he dare compare himself to Lord Caspian? You kidnapped Lord Caspian's mother, so death awaits you," Sylvia said in disdain. "Get the hell away from me. I'm going to call my father and tell him you have the nerve to kidnap me." Lacey kept on screaming in anger. Sylvia did not bother replying to her. She went over to Sherry and lowered her head. "Ms. Sherry, I'm Sylvia Frost, one of Caspian's guards. I'm sorry that you had to witness such a shocking scene." Although Sylvia was a senior general, she was very polite to Sherry, which made her feel like she was in a dream. "You're too polite, General." "I'm fine," Sherry quickly said. Sylvia's politeness toward Sherry incited fear in the Jessups as well. They had wanted to gouge Sherry's eyeballs out, but it turned out that she was Caspian's mother. There was no way they would be allowed to live after this. "I'm deeply sorry that we were late." "I'm glad that you're fine though," Sylvia said apologetically. "You aren't late. You're here right on time," Sherry said emotionally, grasping Sylvia's hands tightly. At this moment, Caspian finally walked over with the armored battalion behind him. Chapter 686, Sentenced to Death on the Spot. When Sherry saw Caspian, she was so overwhelmed with emotion that she could not speak. Caspian looked at the woman across from him. Her face was wrinkled, and she looked quite old. The sight made Caspian's heart ache. He knelt in front of her and called softly, "Mom!" He was the Diatoranian God of War, but his mother still had to suffer for so long. She only left the Massey family because he had gone missing. This made Caspian feel sad. Luckily they were reunited once more. The people present were stunned upon seeing Caspian kneel in front of Sherry despite being the Diatoranian God of War. He had never knelt, not even in front of the king. The Jessups were also stunned. Caspian, who was such an important figure, was really Sherry's son. They had planned to gouge her eyeballs out earlier. They were really courting their own deaths. Sherry had initially been worried that Caspian would not call her his mother, as he had just been a baby when they were separated from each other. However, Caspian knelt down in front of her, and she was touched by the sight. "Please stand up, Caspian." Sherry grasped Caspian's arm. "Mom, I'm sorry that you've been through so much. I finally found you after so long. I'll make sure that you won't need to worry about your future ever again," Caspian said emphatically. Sherry looked quite worse for wear at the moment, but she would forever be Caspian's mother. "You went. You're not to blame. I left the Massey family in a fit of rage after missing you, and I've been looking for you as well. I only started to notice you after you gained a reputation far and wide," Sherry said, eyes brimming with tears. The members of Phoenix Vanguard were so touched by this scene to the extent of shedding tears. Meanwhile, the Jessups were filled with terror at the sight of Caspian showing such respect for his mother. They had assumed that Sherry was nothing but a farmer, but she had suddenly become Caspian's mother. "How did you know that I was still alive and in Churron?" Sherry asked in bemusement. "I had my subordinates investigate what happened in the past, and with that, I learned about you," Caspian said. At this moment, Miranda called out. She was already in tears. "Caspian, please save Tom now. Quick! He's already passed out after losing so much blood." Stunned, Caspian quickly asked, "Where is he?" Caspian had heard about Tom's dangerous state before embarking on the journey to Churron, but he had forgotten about it when he saw his mother. "He's there!" Miranda pointed at Tom. Sherry looked in that direction and saw Tom lying there with a pale face. He seemed to be barely hanging on to consciousness. He looked like he would die at any moment. "Caspian, Tom is in this state now because he saved us. You must try to save him," Sherry said. "Don't worry, I brought the best medic in the army with me, so Tom will surely be fine," Caspian replied. He turned to the soldiers behind him and said, "Have Avon come here immediately." "Yes, sir." An armored soldier ran out immediately to summon him. Avon was treating Arya when the soldier came over, telling him, "Mr. Long, Lord Caspian has asked you to go over there. We have someone who's seriously injured and in danger of dying." "Sure. I'll head over immediately," Avon said. He arranged for other medics to continue treating Arya and the others. They were seriously injured, but their injuries were not to the point of being life-threatening. Avon entered the factory and started treating Tom. Caspian was relieved to see him as he trusted his skills wholeheartedly. "Will he be fine?" Miranda asked worriedly. Tom had already been unconscious for a while. "Don't worry, with Avon here Tom will surely be fine," Caspian reassured her. Hearing that, Miranda could only wait quietly for a miracle to happen. Sylvia came to Caspian and asked, "Lord Caspian, how should we deal with the Jessups and these 3 doctors?" "Take them down and kill them here," Caspian said coldly. The Jessups and Kent were absolutely terrified to hear that. "Don't kill me! I don't want to die," Blake wailed. "My father is Jerry Andrews, Lord Caspian. You must know him, and that's why you can't kill me," Lacey explained. "I won't let you live, not even if your father is the king. This is the consequence of your evil actions," Caspian said viciously. "I already called my father just now. and he's pleading with the king on my behalf. His Majesty will surely spare us, so just wait, Lacey said. What? You already told your father about what happened here? Caspian asked, somewhat shocked. Yes. I realized that something wasn't right here, so I called my father for help. He must have already convinced the king. His Majesty has probably issued a command, Lacey continued. So what if the king learns about this? I have the right to kill. His Majesty has given me the right to act first and report later, Caspian said. I wanted to do bad things to your mother, but I didn't injure her for real, did I? What right do you have to kill me? Lacey argued. Stop trying to argue with me. If I hadn't arrived on time, they would have become corpses by now. I have already investigated your actions long ago. You leveraged your father's position in the court and did many evil deeds in Churron. The crimes you've committed are enough reason for you to be sentenced to death 10 times, Caspian said coldly. What bullshit? Do you have any proof? Are you trying to accuse me despite not having any? Lacey would never admit to her crimes. She was not that dumb. My intelligence organization never gets anything wrong. Task Force Rose has already run a thorough investigation on you, Caspian said. Lacey was taken aback to hear that Caspian had run a secret investigation on her. Task Force Rose was the most mysterious secret agent organization that could obtain any intel they wanted, which meant that they must have known about everything she had been doing in Churron. That in turn meant that Caspian had obtained concrete proof of her actions. I'm Jerry's daughter. Even if I've committed crimes, His Majesty will surely spare me, Lacey said. You're naive, aren't you? How important do you think your father is? He can't help you with this, Caspian said in disdain. That's impossible. I don't believe it. If you dare kill me, the king will punish you for your actions. Lacey was still trying to get herself out of this situation even when she was doomed. Chapter 687 Necessary Sacrifices. Take them all down and execute them by firing squad. Caspian did not bother exchanging unnecessary words with Lacey. He need not ask the king for permission to execute unimportant people such as them. So what if Lacey was Jerry's daughter? He could still kill her. The Jessups were terrified after hearing Caspian's order. Lacey said fearfully, You can't do anything to me, Caspian. Wait for 15 more minutes and the king's order will be conveyed to you. Do you really think the king will spare you without regard for what you've done? Caspian asked. His Majesty will surely be lenient to me for my father's sake. If His Majesty hasn't issued any order after 15 minutes, you're free to do anything you want to me. Lacey was trying her best to buy more time as she was confident that her father would think of ways to save her. It seems that you refuse to believe that you're doomed. I'll give you 15 more minutes then, Caspian said nonchalantly. He knew that Balthazar would not spare someone like Lacey. The Jessups were relieved to hear that Caspian was willing to give them 15 more minutes. Back on the Memorial Hill, Jerry was still begging Balthazar for mercy. Your Majesty, my daughter did the wrong thing because she wasn't herself. Please, give her a chance to turn over a new leaf. I won't do that. Lord Caspian has already informed me about what your daughter has done. In order to save your grandson, she had the underground forces in Churron intervene. She also wanted to gouge out someone else's eyeballs. Talking about this alone is enough to make someone hate her, and it's only one of the wicked deeds your daughter has done. Who knows what other cruel things she has been up to. A person like this shouldn't be spared as she'll only cause more harm, Balthazar said coldly. Please, Your Majesty, listen to me. She must be feeling abject regret by now. As long as you're willing to give her a chance to be a whole new person, I'll discipline her strictly, Jerry said anxiously. You saw what happened to Henry Stewart recently, didn't you? He also said that he regretted everything, and the Stewarts also begged for mercy, but Caspian remained unmoved. They're both adults, and thus should pay the price for their actions. If everyone is provided with a chance after committing a crime, what's the point of the Diatoranian law? Balthazar stated indifferently. Jerry was rendered speechless by the king's words. He did not know what to say in response. You failed to educate her as a father. Although she's already a middle-aged woman, she remains cruel and ruthless. You're a factor in this as well, and you should bear responsibility. I'm willing to be punished in her place, Your Majesty, Jerry said. Are you willing to give up your life for her then? Balthazar said coldly. Jerry shuddered. He took 2 steps back and said fearfully, Please, Your Majesty. I don't want to die yet. Spare me. Jerry wanted to save his daughter, that was true. But he did not want to lose his life just like that. Don't say that you're willing to be punished in your daughter's place then. Her imminent death is set in stone, Balthazar replied icily. Can you please spare her, Your Majesty? I've given my all to assist you, Your Majesty. You can sentence her to prison, but please, don't kill her, Jerry begged. We're the symbol of Diatoran's power. If I abuse the law just because you're a higher-up official, the people will surely oppose me," Balthazar said sternly. Jerry was utterly helpless. He did not know what else he could do now. Noting Jerry's silence, Balthazar said, "Even Caspian can execute the stewards, Jerry. He's not afraid of killing his family for the sake of justice. You should emulate him in that." Jerry was terrified. He had just been jeering at Caspian, but it was now his own turn to experience something similar. "I won't concern myself with this, Jerry. You can discuss this with Caspian yourself," Balthazar said. Jerry's voice shook as he replied, "Yes, your majesty." He understood what the king was implying. He wanted to save his daughter, but he could not just give up his life and position for that, could he? Right in front of Balthazar, Jerry prepared to give Caspian a call to express his stance on the matter. In the abandoned factory in Churron, time passed without pause. Lacey and her family waited for the king to issue an order for them to be spared. They were quiet, praying wordlessly in their hearts. On the other hand, Avon was performing emergency treatment on Tom. The bullets he had taken had not hit any vital organs, but he was in grave condition nevertheless due to the amount of blood he had lost. At this moment, Kent came forward. "Lord Caspian, I'm a doctor too. Can I help to save Tom? I hope that this can alleviate my sins." He did not want to die like this, and that was why he wanted to exhibit his skills. He hoped that Caspian would spare him after that. However, Caspian said coldly, "We don't need an unscrupulous doctor like you. Also, I believe wholeheartedly in Avon's medical prowess." "He'll die if I don't help," Kent said. "That's bullshit. Who do you think you are to comment on my skills like that?" Avon snapped. Caspian suddenly laughed. "See that? Avon's confident, he doesn't need you at all." Kent suddenly felt despair. He had wanted to exhibit what he was capable of, but he had no chance to do so. Arya and the others were already out of danger, so the other medics came to Avon's aid as well. Avon then said, "Lord Caspian, Tom has lost too much blood. He needs a blood transfusion or he'll die." Everyone was eager to volunteer after hearing Avon's words. "I have O-type blood. Let me donate my blood." "Me too. Use as much as you want." "Yeah, saving him should be a priority. We all have the same blood type," Fergus and his family said. They wanted to donate blood to Tom in hopes that they would be spared after that. "Shut up!" Caspian roared. "We don't want to use your blood. You're no better than beasts. Why would we want to use your blood? My soldiers can donate their blood too, so you don't need to put on such an act." Caspian refused to give them any chance. He said to the armored soldiers behind, "Go, take a test to see what blood type you have. Those whose blood type is compatible with Tom's are to donate blood immediately." "Got it, Lord Caspian," the soldiers replied. They took turns donating blood to Tom. As more time passed, the Jessups were even more panicked. About 14 minutes had passed, but there was no word from the king. "The 15 minutes are almost up. Do you have any last words?" Before Caspian looked at the Jessups, his eyes filled with flames of rage. Chapter 688 In Serious Denial. "I request to make a call to my father so that I can ask him how things are on his end." Lacey was still trying despite her imminent execution. She had to hear a clear answer, or she would not be able to die in peace. "Untie her," Caspian ordered. Lacey was the kind of person who insisted on being in denial until the truth stared her in the face. Caspian must make sure she conceded from the bottom of her heart. She would know later what true despair meant. 2 armored soldiers untied Lacey, who quickly took her phone out and called Jerry. Upon seeing how Jerry was rooted to the spot, Balthazar urged him, "Why are you holding your phone but not making any calls? Have you thought it through?" "I'll make a call to Lord Caspian and make my stance clear, Your Majesty." Jerry knew that he could not save his daughter at this point. He might as well ensure he still had his job. "Stop dilly-dallying then. We'll leave this place after you make the call. The Tigran diplomats have arrived in Dord City, so we have to rush back there," Balthazar said. "Yes, Your Majesty." Jerry nodded. His hands were still shaking. What could he do though? He was powerless to save his own daughter. Right when Jerry was about to call his daughter, she called him. He took the call when he saw the familiar phone number. He asked sternly, "What's up?" He was actually pretending to be calm. "How's the thing I told you about going, Dad? Is the king willing to release me?" Lacey said anxiously on the other side of the phone. "I've already told His Majesty about this," Jerry said. "What did he say? Is he about to spare me because of my relation to you?" Lacey asked. Jerry did not know how he should break the news to Lacey. She would probably pass out if he were to tell her the truth outright. "Where's Lord Caspian? Hand the phone to him." Jerry did not give Lacey a direct answer. Hearing how calm Jerry sounded, Lacey made the assumption that the king had agreed to spare her. She said excitedly as she handed the phone to Caspian, "My father wants to talk to you, Lord Caspian." Caspian was surprised to hear that. He and Jerry had always been at odds. What could Jerry say to him? Had he really convinced the king to spare Lacey? He suddenly felt regretful. He should have executed them before reporting to the king. What does he have to say to me? There's nothing we can say to each other, is there? Caspian was reluctant to speak to Jerry. Lacey said gleefully, "His Majesty has surely agreed to spare me. Quick, answer the phone." The Jessops were all overjoyed upon hearing that. Fergus said, "Scared, Lord Caspian? Too chicken to talk to my father-in-law?" Blake added, "Yeah, Grandpa's probably about to convey His Majesty's orders to you. Do you have what it takes to go against his command?" On the other side of the phone, Jerry was rendered speechless by their words. Why were they so stupid even when they were about to be executed? "I have nothing to fear. I believe in His Majesty. He'll never spare you," Caspian said firmly. If the king wanted him to release the Jessops, Caspian would kill them anyway. As a general, he had the right to not listen to the king's orders. Even if he killed the Jessops, what could the king do to him? "What do you have to say to me, Mr. Andrews?" Caspian said calmly. "My daughter made the mistake of harming your mother, Lord Caspian, and she wanted to gouge someone else's eyeballs out as well. I'm ashamed that she's done such evil deeds and my heart aches as a result. This is a disappointment to the king and to Diatoran." "I'm sorry," Jerry said loudly. Caspian was stunned. What was this old fart up to? "Put it more clearly, Mr. Andrews," Caspian said. "My daughter has committed a crime that warrants a death sentence, so I won't beg for mercy on her behalf. I want her to be killed for the sake of justice, just like your relatives," Jerry said solemnly. He felt resigned, but he must put on an act as the king was standing beside him. Caspian was extremely bemused to hear that. Did someone as shameless as Jerry say something so noble? That was totally beyond his imagination. Caspian could make a guess at why he was saying those things though. He must be putting on an act of being noble to protect himself. "If that's so, I'll do it for you," Caspian said. Jerry replied, "Thank you, Lord Caspian." He wanted nothing more but to slice Caspian into shreds at this moment. If not for Caspian, his daughter would not end up in this state. She was about to lose her life. "You're way too polite, Mr. Andrews. This is what I should do," Caspian said with a smile. Lacey looked serious. Noticing something out of the ordinary going on, she quickly asked, "What did my father say, Lord Caspian?" "He said you must be killed for the sake of justice, so he told me to do it," Caspian said coldly. The Jessops' faces turned ashen upon hearing that. Lacey screamed with all her might, "That's fake! That's totally untrue. My father would never let me die." She did not believe that her father would let her be killed for the sake of justice. "Caspian, you must be lying. The king must have ordered you to spare me, but you're lying on purpose because you hold a grudge against me." Lacey was going crazy. "What? You don't believe me? Ask your father yourself then." Caspian returned the phone to Lacey. Jerry wanted to talk to his daughter a while longer too. "Is the king planning to save me, Dad?" Lacey took the phone while shaking all over. "What are you going on about? Why would the king spare you when you've done such heinous things?" Jerry said angrily. Lacey was completely shattered by his words. "I already know what I've done wrong, Dad. Please save me. Beg the king for mercy. I don't want to die," Lacey cried. "You've committed terrible crimes, and you've embarrassed me. I won't help you anymore. From now on, you're no longer my daughter. I'm breaking off all relations with you," Jerry snapped. He could only say that to make his stance clear. Lacey was stunned. She had never expected herself to end up in this state. Jerry sighed. "You should have done better. Don't blame me, daughter. I had told you to lay low, but you didn't listen. Now, you've caused yourself trouble, haven't you? It's too late now, even if you regret it." "I'm sorry. Really, Dad. I don't want to die, so please save me," Lacey cried and shrieked until her voice was hoarse. Chapter 689. The Jessops were executed. "I feel helpless too. You should have obeyed the law and been more disciplined," Jerry said before ending the call. He was filled with helplessness at the thought that he could only watch his daughter die. "Dad, Dad, you can't abandon me!" Lacey was still shrieking into the phone. Caspian wrinkled his brows when he heard her screams. He waved his hand in the air and said to everyone, "Execute them all." "Got it, Lord." The armored soldiers moved immediately, ready to take the Jessops and the doctors down to execute them. "We didn't do anything, Lord Caspian. You can't kill us. Isn't your mother still alive and well right now?" Fergus wailed with all his might. "If I had been a bit late, my mother would have been dead long ago," Caspian said coldly. This is not related to us at all, Lord Caspian. We were just paid by the Jessup family and we didn't touch your mother either. Our crimes don't warrant a death sentence. Kent was also trying hard to get out of this situation as he felt wronged. Cut the crap. A doctor without morals like you has probably done many harmful things. Why should I let a person like you live? Caspian remarked icily. He had no desire to talk to doctors like this at all. Please spare me, Lord Caspian. I haven't lived for long enough. I don't want to die. Blake was shaking from head to toe. Now you regret it? It's too late. After this cold comment, Caspian stopped talking to these people. Lacey knew that Caspian was set on killing them, and that begging him to spare them would be futile. She suddenly thought of Sherry, Caspian's mother. Caspian was a good son, so he would naturally listen to his mother. If she could touch Sherry's heart, the family would have a way out. I did something to offend you because I didn't know who you were, Miss Sherry. I hope that you can forgive us, Lacey said to Sherry. I won't meddle in my son's business, Sherry said. Lacey continued to beg her, please, have Caspian spare us. Your efforts will be futile no matter how long you speak. You've committed heinous deeds, so I won't plead with him on your behalf, Sherry said coldly. Despair overcame Lacey at this moment. The soldiers dragged the Jessups and the doctors out. They had them kneel on the ground before aiming their guns at the criminals' heads. Mom, I haven't married yet. I don't want to die. Save me. Blake was so scared he lost control of his bowels. I'm going to be executed too. How am I supposed to save you? We're in this state because you caused trouble, Lacey snapped. She was angry because she knew that her death was inescapable. She had tried everything she could, and even her father had abandoned her. She was completely at her wit's end. You can't put all the blame on me, Mom. You were the one who proposed the idea of gouging her eyeballs out, Blake wailed. How dare you talk back, you brat, Lacey cursed. Blake regretted everything. His family would be killed now because he injured someone in a car crash. Corpses were piled up high outside the factory. Blake took a look and he almost passed out. He would not have made things difficult for Sherry and the others if he had known that they would end up in this state. Who would have known that the woman his car had collided with was the Diatoranian God of War's mother? I'm so unlucky to have met you. I did nothing, but I'm going to lose my life anyway. Kent wanted nothing but to cut the Jessups into pieces. If they had not given him so much money as compensation, he would not have done something like this, which meant that he would not have ended up in this state. Cut the crap! You're going to die now, an armored soldier said. Fire! An officer ordered. The bullets were fired, and the Jessups, as well as Kent and his assistants, were dead. Tom finally recovered somewhat thanks to Avon's efforts. He was still unconscious, but it seemed that he was finally out of danger. Mom, is she my sister? Caspian asked, looking at Cecilia. Yes. I adopted her when she was an orphan, Sherry said, afraid that Caspian would misunderstand. Caspian, you must treat your sister well in the future, she added. Of course. I'm happy that I have a sister now. What if you two come back with me to South Lake City? I can take care of you. Let me treat you well, Caspian said. We're used to living in the Churron countryside and have many bad habits. What if your wife has a lot to complain about me after we go to South Lake City with you? Sherry asked worriedly. Don't worry. Willow's very considerate and will never make things difficult for you, Caspian said with a smile. And I'm the guy who calls the shots at home. Willow must listen to me about everything. You're boasting, aren't you, Caspian? I heard that the Diatoranian God of War is afraid of his wife and is always at her beck and call, Cecilia suddenly said. Caspian was speechless as his sister had left him with no dignity. Macy and the members of Phoenix Vanguard covered their mouths as they laughed. Caspian said displeased, Who did you hear this from? They're slandering me. Why would someone living in Churron know about his personal life? This was ridiculous, my friends told me. They said that the Diatoranian God of War is weaker than he looks and is afraid of his wife, Cecilia said with a smile. As Caspian gained more fame, his rumors had also spread everywhere. That's all bullshit. Also, I love my wife, so why would I be afraid of her? She's very kind and considerate too, so she'll surely treat you well, Caspian said. He did not want his sister to think that he was afraid of his wife. Also, how could one say he feared Willow when he loved her? After learning that you were in danger, she came with me to Churron too, Caspian said. Really? Why don't I see Miss Stewart here though? Sherry asked, confused. She had heard rumors about Caspian. He had married Willow Stewart, the most beautiful lady in South Lake City. Just call her Willow, Mom. We took the same jet here, but she wasn't brave enough to parachute down from it. The plane has probably touched down at the airport, and perhaps she'll be here soon, Caspian said. How can such a dignified lady like her jump from the plane with you? She made a smart choice, Sherry said with a laugh. This was her first time experiencing the warmth of being with family. Also, she wanted to see what her reportedly beautiful daughter-in-law looked like. Chapter 690 Kill Them All. Moving to South Lake City sounds nice, Caspian, but I still have to go to school. How can we deal with that? Cecilia asked worriedly. Don't worry, Cecilia, leave everything to me. I'll transfer you to South Lake High. My old homeroom teacher, Ms. Wildman, is still teaching there. I'll have her tutor you. She has taught at the school for a long time, and she's better than your teachers in Churron for sure, Caspian said. That's great. I need not worry then, Cecilia said. Only then did Caspian notice the many injuries on Cecilia's and Sherry's skin. He asked, "What happened to you? Why did you get hurt?" "Blake Jessup's lackeys beat us up," Cecilia answered. "Did they come here with Blake today?" Caspian asked. "I don't think so. I didn't see them today." Suddenly, Caspian's face darkened, and he looked quite murderous. Upon noticing that, Sherry asked worriedly, "What's with you, Caspian? You aren't planning to kill more people, are you?" "You need not concern yourself with this, mother. I'll have a doctor conduct a comprehensive health inspection for you two later," Caspian said. "I'm fine. These injuries didn't break the skin, so there's no need to trouble your medics," Sherry said. Tom had wanted them to go to the hospital the previous night, but Sherry had found it pointless. Their injuries were not serious. The skin just looked somewhat bruised. "No, you must listen to me," Caspian said firmly. Noticing that Caspian's words brooked no refusal, Sherry could only nod. "Stay here. I'll go out for a while," Caspian said before leaving the place. He walked over to where Arya and the Arya had ended up seriously injured to save Caspian's mother. As the Diatoranian God of War, of course. Caspian must visit her and express his thanks. Arya happened to regain consciousness at this moment. She saw Caspian standing beside her. The sight gave her a start. She called emotionally, "Lord Caspian!" She was even about to stand up and salute in respect, but she could not due to her serious injuries. Meanwhile, her four comrades were staring at Caspian, their gazes burning. They had not met Caspian ever since joining Task Force Rose, but the man was currently in front of them. Of course, the sight of him excited them to no end. Everyone in Diatoran idolized Caspian. "Don't move around, Arya. You're heavily injured, so there's no need for the salute," Caspian said hurriedly. "Thank you, Lord Caspian." Arya nodded and lay down. The other members of Team Rose nodded in respect to Caspian as well. "Oh, you've woken up. You gave me a shock, you know." Lena exhaled in relief when she saw that Arya was awake. "You're here too, Captain Lena." Arya smiled joyfully. Her gaze had been focused on Caspian, so she did not notice Lena at all. "I heard that you were heavily surrounded, so I came here as well," Lena said. "Got it. LS Lord Caspian's mother safe now?" Arya asked hurriedly. "They're all safe and sound, all thanks to your efforts in buying time." Caspian nodded. "That's great. I thought I failed in my mission," Arya said. "You've done well. The 5% of you managed to drag it out for so long despite the disadvantage in numbers. You've exceeded what was expected of you," Caspian said. He then turned to Lena. "They fought valiantly, so you must reward them handsomely and promote them after we return." Lena nodded. "Got it, Lord Caspian." "Thank you, Lord Caspian." Arya was happy to hear Caspian's praise for her. "You're welcome. You've done a really great job," Caspian replied. Arya looked at the corpses on the ground. She knew that they had achieved a complete victory after Lord Caspian's arrival. "Arya, let me ask you a question. Do you know the names of the lackeys with Blake Jessup last night?" Caspian asked. "They're Uriah Larkin and Scott Corden," Arya said. "Lena, you're to find these two men and execute them immediately," Caspian said. They had been up to no good with Blake, so of course, they had to be executed. "Yes, Lord," Lena answered before turning to leave the factory. She was very confident that she could deal with insignificant men such as those two. Macy asked, "How do we deal with all the corpses, Lord Caspian?" "Call the Inspector General's office here in Churron, and have them deal with the aftermath," Caspian said. There was a motive behind his decision. He wanted the office to take in the proof that so many underground forces remained, despite their enforcement, so that they would feel ashamed. "Got it!" Macy called the office immediately. The person working in the office who picked up drawled lazily, "Who's there?" "LM Macy Osborne, the leader of Phoenix Vanguard." Macy made her position clear immediately. However, the man on the other end of the phone said coldly, "Phoenix Vanguard? Never heard of it. You'll be arrested if you make a fake report to the police, you know." Macy was enraged by his words. She said, "Do you know who's Caspian Lynch, the Diatoranian God of War?" "Duh, of course I know him. He's the famous Diatoranian God of War. Everyone in Diatoran knows him, the inspector said. Caspian repelled the extremely powerful enemy troops and ventured into the depths of the enemy's troops in order to rescue the king of Diatoran. Naturally, everyone in Churron had heard of that. The many fighter jets above Churron had also garnered a lot of attention. Lord Caspian had me give you a call, Macy said nonchalantly. Macy's words gave the inspector a start. He asked in fear, what, you're Lord Caspian's woman? What are you yapping on about? I'm his subordinate, Macy said exasperatedly. Willow would surely be jealous for no reason again if she were to hear the inspector's question. Double, what do you need us to do, miss? The inspector asked cautiously. He dared not offend a subordinate of the Diatoranian God of War. No one would dare pose as that, right? If the Inspector General's office could have the chance to welcome the arrival of the Diatoranian God of War, it would be a great honor. Who are you speaking to in that way? That's General Osborne to you, Macy snapped. Caspian was speechless upon hearing Macy's words. She was back at it again. Yes, certainly. What do you need from us, General Osborne? I'll do as you say, the inspector replied quickly. Lord Caspian wants the Inspector General's office of Churron to deal with the corpses in this abandoned factory in the north end of the city, Macy said. Huh? Did anything happen there? The inspector asked. You talk too much. Just do as I say, Macy snapped. Certainly. I'll report to my superiors right away, the inspector replied deferentially.